Hello everybody, this is your girl Giselle Ureña, and you're now rocking with Revolutionary G Talks. And today I have my two friends,
James Areago,
Kenney Victor.
And thank you so much for watching. So, Kenny, why don't you start and tell me more about your journey and how did you get to where you are today?
I'll say for me, I'll start when I was in high school. I went to a school that had a lot of minorities. It was one of the most diverse schools in Massachusetts, Randolph, Massachusetts. I went there for 2 years. Then I transferred to Boston College High School, which was by far not as diverse. It was an all-boys school, and there were, to be blunt, there were a lot of white men. So I feel like being at BC High prepared me to currently be at Liberty Mutual today, because it reminds me a lot of that same scenario where all of my friends called me by my first name, but a lot of my friends, because 8 of them were named John, had to call each other by their last name just to kind of make it real for everyone. But that's kind of a little bit about how I'm able to, I guess, navigate the environment in which I'm not necessarily the majority, but I've always been used to that. And so it's always been something to not necessarily try to fit in, but to leverage and benefit from standing out, what you do with that. So that's just a little bit about what I've dealt with, but having resolve and a solid mind state is helpful.
So I went to Howard University, or we supposed to start at high school. Sorry, I went to high school in Jersey.
It's okay.
And my high school was pretty diverse, but the high school sat on top of the hill pretty much, and it separated the town. So actually there was a set of doors. Every door had a race. So there were like the white doors, black doors, Spanish doors, and that's where people typically went their way home.
Oh, wow.
So the town was separated. It's called Teaneck. Town is separated pretty much like black side, white side.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of the minorities obviously stayed on the black side, and on the white side there were a lot of Jewish people who lived there. But at the high school, you didn't feel that tension, but I think back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, like that, there was definitely a lot more tension then. And then I went from that type of environment to Howard University, where an HBCU, so the HBCU, let me just be clear. And obviously I'm the majority, and that's one of the only moments in my life that I could think of where I was actually in the majority. Then leaving that and going into the corporate environment, it was really hard to adjust. And that's where I got some mentors to kind of sit me down and like, look, you can't be this black. You know, you have to tone it down a bit, because it could come across kind of aggressive, and I already come across aggressive. So the last thing you want is to scare people. And then I ended up moving here, where my tolerance for having to tone down my blackness has just shifted. Like, I'm tired of trying to be different. If I'm going to be my best self at work, then I need to be myself.
Exactly. I actually can relate with that absolutely, because I go to Brandeis University, where most of the students are Jewish. It's a predominantly Jewish college, and you feel like an outcast a lot of the times. You feel like you just don't belong, but that mindset needs to change. Again, going back to the importance of having the mental capacity of recognizing something and saying, I'm not going to let that impact me in a negative way. How can I benefit from it? And that's basically what you touched on. It's like, okay, if I stand out, how can I make that work for me, and balance things out? So don't change who you are. Don't change your identity or like your true self just because you're standing out, or you might look a little bit too different. Or when I speak, sometimes people think just because I speak the way I speak, I'm uneducated. Just because I got an accent, or I speak like I'm, from the hood, because I'm from the hood, oh, she's uneducated. She don't know what she's talking about. She probably got to Brandeis just because she has a very appealing story. They don't think I belong there, right? So it's very important to be mentally prepared. And again, that's being emotionally healthy. And again, connecting it just to the point of the show is that we need to know how to be aware of those things, and things are going to come your way. So I can relate to both, absolutely. My next question would be, how do you overcome I know you kind of touched it on, like, you know, you said, I gotta be myself. But how do you overcome feeling like an outcast? And how do you approach that? That the feeling of not belonging?
I approach the feeling of not belonging in the sense of, I approach it in a sense of for strength, to be honest. In the sense that I'm not there, to James's point, to fit in, and I understand that by not fitting in, those are the things that will allow me to stand out and will allow me to be different. Sometimes being different it's all in how you perceive it, and it's all in how you respond to it. And so for me, I think that goes back to like the capacity you were talking about, your mental health. But I think it starts with empowering yourself to be able to choose how you're going to respond to any given stimulus in a situation. So if you're in a place where you're not the majority, how are you going to use that to make it so that every time you have the opportunity to speak, you make sure that your words move mountains. You make sure that the things that you do, it's memorable for all of the right reasons. So when you have an opportunity to change the narrative, understand when it's time to be big and take advantage of it. So because things aren't always the way that we want it to be, that's still not an excuse. If you want something to be a certain way, what are you doing right now to go and make it that way? And so those are the things that I would say, like, yes, it's not fair. Yes, it's not fun looking around and not seeing people that look like you. So go get some people that look like you and put them in a position to succeed. I don't want to hear about why it's tough. I want to hear about what you did to overcome the trials, the tribulations. Those are the things that we should be talking about.
Exactly.
The actions, how we proactively did things to get things accomplished.
Because we can identify the problem, right? And sometimes we get so stuck in identifying the problem, but we don't identify the solution, and we don't stick with the solutions. So what about you? What would you say to that? How would you approach the feeling of not belonging?
It's difficult because we've been conditioned for over 300 years to assimilate and be comfortable according to their standards and their structure. So now we're in this space where, as minorities, we're trying to break out of that. Not to say that we haven't before, but as you yourself are growing up, your personality, for instance, coming into Liberty, huge culture shock for people because they're not used to someone who's bright, energetic, coming into the building. Like, they're used to just people coming in and just being calm, cool, collected, because that's the environment and that's how they've structured it for over 100 years. So now they're trying to figure out, how do we adjust to these new individuals? And I think you should just be yourself. Like, you waste your time and you waste energy and you actually tire yourself out trying to be someone else. If you are strategizing on how to create a new person, you're wasting your time. You could be doing that. You could be using that energy to bring someone else in that looks like you. There's so many other opportunities that you can help change the environment. But if you're going to be stuck with, well, this is how things are, so I'll just do my job and just keep moving forward, you're wasting time. You're wasting our time. You're wasting our race's time. Like, we can't continue to just be in this situation. Like, at some point, things have to shift, and it starts with every individual. You can't wait for Kenny to do it. I can't sit here and wait for Kenny to change how things are going to work for me, and he can't do the same. How do we work together to change so that way the next individuals that come in, like yourself, how do we make that environment comfortable so that way when you come back, you think about what me and Kenny did, and then you can say, okay, how do I help the next Giselle come in? How do I help the next Ashley come in? How do I help the next Jared come in? It's that type of environment that we need to create for ourselves. We can't keep doing this crab in a barrel and, well, you can't get out because I didn't get out, so now I got to pull you back. We got to stop that. We're not getting anywhere by doing that. And by not being yourself, that's what they want you to do.
Exactly. Oh, you make my hair. We got goosebumps out here. That's so true. What would you say to a high school student who believes that financial instability won't let them go to college and be in a corporate world? Because, you know, many of us may think that that's not an option. Again, I thought that was not an option for me. But what can you say to these kids that have so much potential yet they just don't see it?
There are so many ways you can find funding. I mean, obviously, the one thing that you could do is obviously take out loans, but that's not the best option for you. As you can see, like, the student debt just continues to grow annually, and more students who are graduating are just being in more and more debt, and they can't climb out of it. and then you end up in a unfortunate situation. But there are scholarships, there are grants, there are programs that offer scholarships and provide other funding. You can get funded through organizations, through whatever program they have going. So there are definitely other opportunities, or you can look for other universities that have, you know, cheaper tuition costs. So obviously, if you wanted to go to a Harvard, that's great, but Harvard's expensive. But there are other institutions such as HBCUs, or as they're calling Hispanic serving institutions. Sorry, not sure what the true acronym is, but for institutions that have a larger popularity of Hispanic students, those institutions are made specifically for students of color. Seek those universities out. Obviously, like a Howard University or a Hampton University or a Spelman or Morehouse or Clark, North Carolina A&T, Florida A&M. Like, there's so many other institutions that were specifically made to help us succeed and push through the circumstances that were put in front of us for hundreds of years. These universities still exist. And in a town like Boston, where we have so many pockets of Black, Hispanic, and poor other races, because I hate to bucket them, but you know, obviously HBCUs were made for Black people, but these institutions are there to help you succeed and push forward. We need to do a better job here in Boston to help push some of those students who are in those type of situations where they don't know what other opportunities I have for college because I can't afford to go to one around here. There are some other options for you.
That's great.
What I would also add to that, James brought up a lot of great ideas about different schools, different institutions. For the folks that are in Boston, and this is not a plug or anything like that, but I also recommend you join Leaders of Tomorrow, those institutions like that, because there's things that we're putting in place where we talk about action. So James has put together college tours so you can learn about institutions. By being a member of Leaders of Tomorrow, you're then exposed and you have the opportunity to get scholarships, to get funding, to go to all these different schools. So there's opportunities there. So those are just some actual tangible ways of things you can do right now by logging online and going to join and coming to meet one of us on Saturdays when we have these sessions. But that's just the starting point that I would say. But to that point, that opens up a lot more opportunities to the different instances that James did discuss. But that's one in particular to make it very real and tangible for everybody out there that I would say that you can do right now.
I even would love to answer my own question as well. I got accepted to Brandeis through the Myra Craft Transitional Year Program, funded by the owner of the Patriots. And I went, as soon as I saw that program, you know, I may have thought, I don't need a transitional year, but I know I needed support. I needed something. At first hand, I knew I couldn't make it to college because I wasn't there financially. But this program is not only benefiting me financially, but it has, I'm provided a whole director who identifies with like myself, and I can connect to and guide me through this process of being at a higher education institution. Also, I want to go back, you know, again, not to be a plug too, but Freedom House. Freedom House is in the heart of Grove Hall, and Freedom House is specifically for students of color. I mean, not only students of color, but for people that come from low-income backgrounds and provide resources. So, again, I want to talk about all these things in this show is because this is not only about fitness. This is not only about, you know, exercising, but about wellness, health and wellness, you know, how we can all be benefiting and becoming a better us, a better version of ourselves. So again, thank you for speaking on these resources and opportunities that people can seek to. And again, it's always a pleasure to have you both. And thank you for coming. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for tuning in. See you next time. We have come to the end of this episode, but please stay tuned for the next one. And thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. And any feedback you have, please leave it down below in the comments. Thank you so much.